Can I have your attention, please? People will still be walking in as we start. We're going to have Master Sergeants Peter Clark. He's going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Everybody please stand. I just want to have one moment of silence for the Green Berets, 4 of them that got ambushed and killed in Africa. Thank you. Now, I'd like all the veterans over here just to raise their hand to get recognized. Put your hand up. Thank you. People of this grateful nation, put your hand over your right heart, and all veterans a hand salute and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
As everybody knows, for the last couple of years, myself, Bob Mitchell, and other presidents, coalition, I guess we can kind of call a little bit, have gotten our people together so that we can hear the candidates that are running, what they're about, and ask them questions. So I'm going to put, Bob, maybe you can pull up We'd like to make an acknowledgement.
Yes, and we'd also like to give you a quick rundown on the format. Amongst our audience here, we have a couple of people running for office who are not specifically invited to speak, but we're just going to acknowledge their presence, and we're going to, they were here handing out their leadership before. Elizabeth McDonough, a candidate for Nassau County District Court Judge, and Joseph Conway, a candidate also for County Court Judge. If they're still here. I'm sorry, thank you for your presence, but the program is limited to the people that were specifically invited. The candidates are asked, they're given 10 minutes to speak and 5 minutes to take questions. And by the way, that's for the county executive candidates. The other candidates are asked to limit their speech to 6 minutes and 3 minutes to take questions. They're being presented basically in order of arrival, unless the candidates agree amongst themselves to change anything. Now, the first person that was registered to show up to speak was Stephen Labriola, Republican candidate for county controller. I'm not aware whether or not his opponent has shown up. By the way, we'd like to say that everybody on the bill that you see was given a fair chance. They were all invited, and almost all of them responded and said they would be here. So in any particular case, if only one candidate here, it was for circumstances beyond our control. We made every effort to provide a fair platform for everybody. So, Mr. Labriola, please.
Thank you. Williston Park, Albertson, and South Park Civic Association. Well, thank you all for being here tonight. I know that it's not easy to be here on a Friday night having to listen to your candidates for public office, but it gives me great honor to present myself to you as the Republican candidate for county controller. Those of you who don't know me, I know some of you may, but those of you who don't, I'm going to talk to you like as if you meet me for the first time. So, my name is Steve Labriola. I was born and raised in Massapequa Park. I'm one of 7 children. I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters. That helps me get elected, by the way. And I went to St. John's University. I got my master's degree in government, politics, and public administration. I've always wanted to be in public service from the moment that I really understood what it was that politics and government does. We have the ability to make great change in our community for the good, and do no harm and help as many people as we can. And that's what I've always understood about government. St. John's was such a great background to get that. Those of you know, when I was there, it was the Redmen, now it's Red Storm. They also got some good basketball. So after that, I met my wife, Cindy, who I've been married to Cindy for 31 years, and we have two grown daughters. I put them on my palm card here because they're still living at home. And after the election, I'm interviewing candidates myself. So that's a little about me. At some point after I had my education, I had an opportunity to run for the New York State Assembly. And I served with one of your hometown ladies, Maureen O'Connell. And we were in Albany together in the State Assembly. She sat right next to me, and there were mornings I used to pick her up. And we'd drive to Albany together, and she would open up a bottle of nail polish and do that right in my car. And you know how cold it is in Albany, right? So I couldn't even open the windows up. So she tortured me. But we became very good friends. We worked together very closely, and I learned a great deal about lawmaking in Albany. And I had the pleasure of serving Southeast Nassau County for 4 terms. That would be about 8 years. Then I had the opportunity to run for a local office, and I ran and won the Oyster Bay Town Clerk. I had beat the incumbent Democrat Town Clerk, and I served 5 terms there, 2-year terms again. And about 5 years ago, I left Oyster Bay government and I went to Nassau County. I had an opportunity to serve you as the Chief Deputy Controller under Controller George Maragos. And sometime thereafter, as you know, he switched parties and ran for county executive. He actually ran for U.S. Senate a couple of times, and then he ran for county executive. But sometime around about two years after serving with George Maragos, then I became the Chief Compliance Officer for Nassau County in management and budget. So I've been around municipal finance for most of my adult life, and this is what the Controller's Office is. And being that I served as Chief Deputy Controller, I feel that I bring a great deal of experience to the job. But I also have this view of state government and local government and how it works together and how it fits together. And that's an important aspect of what we're doing in Nassau County, because for Nassau County to get true fairness, to get fairness and to be treated fairly like every other county, we're going to need to extract from Albany, the state legislature, some changes. And that's what Jack Martins and myself have been really campaigning about over the last 7 months. We're talking about bringing fairness because 3 administrations have tried and failed to fix the assessment system in Nassau County, and I'm sure you're going to hear more about that. And the way to do that really is to get Nassau County to be treated like every other county in New York State. And that is to get this county guarantee off our back, which means that every time that somebody challenges their taxes because their assessment was wrong, we give back $1, right, for every dollar they win. But we've only collected 16 cents. Now that problem has created about $1 billion in debt on Nassau County residents. Now do you know what we could build for $1 billion? And we had nothing to show for it except debt and interest. And that's got to change, and that has not changed, and we need to get that from our state legislature. The other thing they talk about, what we've been talking about, is admitting for the first time that Nassau County is not really good at assessment. We've shown that every other county, the towns do it, and we need to employ best practices and maybe get that monkey off our back and give it back to the towns and help them build their assessment department, because they're going to do it better, they're going to do it more accurate. We just have too many properties to do assessments every single year. And we're not going to create another bureaucracy, and we're not going to watch ourselves fail again. So that's something that I'm sure you're going to hear more about. But in terms of the Controller's Office, here's why it's an important job and why you need to know the candidates who has the experience and the integrity and the plan to make sure that your tax dollars are protected. The Controller's Office reviews and audits every single dollar that Nassau County spends in a $3 billion budget. That's quite a lot. I see one of the auditors back here. I know who I've worked with. About 30 seconds. So my job is the first line of defense to prevent fraud, corruption, waste, and abuse. What we do is, as the vendors who do business with Nassau County are subjected to a claims audit, and if something is wrong, then we refer it to a full audit, and possibly we refer it to for criminal wrongdoing. That's part of the auditing function. The accounting function is also very important, because my job as controller is to report to you on the fiscal health of Nassau County and to report to the executive and the administration. All right. Well, I'm just going to wrap it up by saying this. I hope that you give me some questions in the next year. You're taking the microphone. You can't get this away from me just yet. I know that there's some Q&A.
You don't know. We'll get the gung-ho hook and throw it right up. Pull you right up. All right. Is there anybody that has questions? Mr. Labriot? Anybody?
Want to hear about the fiscal health of Nassau County?
Oh, hold on, we got a question. You don't get that 3 minutes.
Hi, you say that we should give the handy assessment job back to the towns, I guess. Is that how it's done in other parts of New York State? And if so, do they accomplish a better result than what we've got?
Yeah, the answer is that is best practices. That's how it's done all over New York State. There's only one other county that does it the way we do it, and it's a small little county upstate New York with about 100,000 people. We have 1.4 million people, and there's just too many properties for the county to do it. So it's what I call best practices. We need to go to Albany, sit with some of the experts in the real estate department, and employ best practices. Now that's going to be a job for the executive and for the legislature. I talk about it because it affects the fiscal health of Nassau County, so I want you to understand that that is a burden that I have to deal with in monitoring that kind of debt and how it impacts. This year we took $36 million of operating budget and applied it towards certiorari, tax certiorari, which are the successful challenges on commercial real estate. Now that's $36 million that could have provided better services for your residents, and that's what we have to end. Anybody else have any questions?
I understand that there's problems with, the tax base and the county collecting and all of that sort of thing, but I guess I have a couple of different questions together. Why is it that those apartment buildings that are in Mineola on Old Country Road and the other ones going up in Mineola on Mineola Boulevard on the north side of the train station, why are they tax exempt for 20 years, number one? Number two, why is it that when the assessors do go out and do their job and they have raped that department of employee numbers, that they do their job, they come back and they're told by higher ups that they are in fact, they're not recording what in fact the auditors, the assessment people have gone and witnessed and seen is actually on site. There are innumerable numbers of large properties in Nassau County that are not taxed. And I want to know what's going to be done about that, because that burden falls to us. And if you're mentioning going up to the state, anytime we put our hands out to anybody, the state, whatever it is, it's going to come out of our pockets. You know that state tax is going to go up. So basically, what are you telling us, that you're not going to do anything about these tax-free properties and that our taxes from the state are going to go up? Because where are you going to get the money?
There's a lot there. Let me just say this. As far as the individual properties, I don't know what it is that you're referring to, but it sounds like they got a tax abatement. It sounds like a pilot, and that was probably granted by the local industrial development agency. I don't know how that happened. I'm not sure about that property. But that's a whole nother topic in terms of how the IDA operates, and the truth of the matter is I'm not too happy or pleased with the way they've been giving out tax abatements, because it's supposed to be tied to job creation, permanent job creation. It's supposed to be tied to our manufacturing base. Instead, it has been utilized in different ways that I'm not too thrilled with. So as far as that goes. Now, as far as the assessment goes, this is what I'm talking about. You're pointing out a problem in the assessment department. One of the problems is they're not staffed adequately. We know that. Another problem is that we don't have an elected assessor anymore. You know that people got rid of that years ago. So the department has slowly declined. And the truth of the matter is I'm making the admission to you that I know as a government person, as somebody who studied government my whole life, that I know Nassau County should give it up. They're just not good at it. And you have to recognize the fact that they need to give it and employ best practices back to the town. So, but my role as controller, as I said to you, is only limited to the aspect that I'm going to comment on how the assessment system is affecting the fiscal health of Nassau County. My role is I'm not the assessor, I don't have a policy-making role in that regard. What I mentioned to you, and I knew it would get everybody excited, was that this has been an albatross upon the taxpayers in Nassau County. We need to change it. You just can't keep doing the same thing over and over again, especially when you don't do it well. They cut me again. That's it.
All right, that's it, Joe. All right, next up, our next speaker is Steve Naster. He's the candidate for town supervisor for the town of North Hempstead, Republican Party. Steve? There we go.
I'm sorry, we have to be abrupt. As you can see, we have a nice crowd here, and we have a nice slate of candidates, and at some point, we got to hustle people along.
So I'm just going to touch you on the shoulder. If you don't respond to that, I get to hold.
I saw that show years ago.
By the way,
Can you hear me in the back?
Can you excuse me a minute, Mr. Nestor? By the way, you are free to ask the candidates before they leave to converse with them separately, and the candidates likewise are feel free to stay beyond their allotted speaking time and to mingle with the crowd. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I am really proud to be running for town supervisor at the town of North Hempstead, and I'm really happy to see so many people show up to meet the candidates, because that is what democracy is about. We're running for office, we're going to represent you when we get elected, and it's your money that pays for government. So, I don't think many people in the room know me. There may be a few. I've been walking the street fairs, and I've been walking through Albertson, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself. Although I was never an elected politician, I've been in government service for over 35 years. I came into the police department as a young rookie trainee, and I was fortunate enough to study and work hard, and I went up the rank from police officer to sergeant to lieutenant to captain to deputy inspector, and I retired as inspector when the district attorney from Bronx County asked me if I could come aboard and take over his detective investigators unit. And I was proud that Mr. Robert Johnson asked me to come over. So I left the NYPD and I worked for another 12 years with Rob Johnson. In his office, we investigated opioid gangs. We also investigated government corruption. And I was fortunate enough that we had very successful cases, and we did break up a lot of drug gangs, and we also put several crooked politicians in jail where they belong. So people might say, why after all these years of service would you want to run for office? Well, I want to tell you, I was sitting on the sideline watching what's going on, just like a lot of people in this room, from both sides, the Democrats, Republicans, and the attitude, the atmosphere is very poisonous almost, that you don't want to watch TV because you see people acting irresponsible, you see people doing crazy stuff with our money and stealing. So a friend of mine called me up and asked me if I'd like to run, and here I am. As the town's, just a little bit about my background. I grew up on the South Shore, Valley Stream. I lived in Lynbrook, and I also went to John Jay College and Columbia University Police Management Institute. And I have a master's degree from John Jay College, and I'm teaching right now at John Jay College. So I think I have a lot on my plate, but when I talk to people on the issues, and the issues hit us at home. The issues concern the building department, the issues concern the patronage, the waste, and the nepotism in our local town government. And it's something that, when elected, I'm going to look at each and every job and make sure that people are working in the title that they get paid to work in. I'm also going to make sure that if there's a superintendent of highways, that his brother is not working in the same agency with them, because it just does not work out. If I owned a grocery store, I could hire my 4 brothers and my sister and my wife. But government is different, because government is our money. And we have to make sure, as responsible government people, that we don't waste it. The building department seems to be the #1 concern. Seems a lot of people can't get permits. When the agents come into their house to look at their heater, they find out that their banister is not in compliance. And I understand safety. I understand fire safety. It's very important that we have a good building department. However, we, the taxpayers, should not be abused. The building department works for us, and we have to do, the town has to do better to make it work. I talk to other people in other towns, and they do not have the runaround we get here. So I just want to tell you that, and I hope you vote for me on November 7th. Thank you very much.
So you can
and answer more questions.
Oh, yeah, anybody have any questions? Please. Thank you. Gentleman in the back. Oh, right.
Thank you. There's been several court decisions, both at the state and federal level, that the town attorney's office looks to for guidance in determining occupancy characteristics of a home, whether it's owner-occupied or rental, and specifically as it pertains to the zoning area, whether it's one family or two. And some of these decisions have been more narrow, some of them have been more expansive. The narrow definitions pretty much would fall into what I believe are what most people believe as an expectation of what is considered a one family. And but the more expansive definitions, I think some people would be surprised at what could be found in their neighborhoods. And so what I would ask for yourself, and I would invite Supervisor Bolivar too, when she gives her presentation, to share your thoughts on what your general feelings are as to where in the spectrum of interpretation of these judgments should be, whether you feel more narrow or more expansive, and just what effect you think that would have on the housing market, depending upon where you would fall in that spectrum.
Well, thank you very much. It's a very, I would say, sensitive topic where we draw the line as far as family is concerned, because we know today that family has a different definition than it did in the past. And that's not bad, that we expanded our definition of family. However, if you have a one-family house and you have a cousin third removed who comes and lives with you and is paying rent to you, in effect, it's not a one-family house anymore. It's a two-family house. And he has his siblings in the house, and they're going to the school, and they're living in your residence. I think it's very difficult for government to draw the line of who belongs to live in a house. However, if in fact it is an overcrowded situation, if in fact there are numerous people who live in the house and there might be building violations inside the home, I think it's important that the building department goes there, talks to the residents, and finds out if in fact it is illegal one family or it's an illegal multi-dwelling. And that's how I would come down on it.
Thank you very much for your piece. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, if people have questions, perhaps you wouldn't mind going back there separately, because we're trying to. I'm sorry, we didn't record. Go ahead, ma'am. Okay, let me bring the mic there. Don't shoot the piano player, you know.
Okay, Mr. Nasta? Mr. Nasta?
Yes, I'm sorry.
So I'm the wife of a retired New York City police officer, so I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
Not sure that makes you the perfect candidate for town supervisor. I often go to the town hall meetings, and I've yet to see you there. I think if you've been there, you have noticed that they've done a lot with the nepotism issue, cleaning it up. That's one. Two, I'm just curious because you mentioned the opioids, and I'm not sure exactly what year you were talking about, but back then I'm not sure that was the focus of the drug of choice. So what did you do for the opioid issue? Or was it a different drug?
Okay, in answer to your first question, and it was a good one, how does this man who's a police officer think he can run a town? Well, I'm much more than a police officer. I'm a leader, and I work with hundreds of men and women, and I had a budget to run a precinct. So I know how important it is to direct people and to make sure that they're doing their job. It's also very important to work with the community. As a leader, we have meetings at least twice a month where the community would come in, just like this, and give us their questions, to give us their complaints, and I would follow up. I wouldn't just say yes, I'm going to do something and not get it done. So I went to Columbia University, and we learned that if you can manage a public organization, you can manage anything. And the second issue, heroin has been around forever. Heroin's been around forever. Opioid, heroin. That's what we did. We locked up people for heroin, we locked up people for cocaine, and we did a good job. And the men and women, and some of them lost, I know 2 officers, they lost their life doing undercover buys. So I'm proud of what they did, and to think it's a new drug, you're wrong. Okay, thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Terry Toman. I'm working with Ed Scott, Albertson Civic Association, and Bob Mitchell, Williston Park Civic Association, and it's great that you guys came out and spent time to find out about your candidates. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, we had one of the attendees here who helped us out. I want to acknowledge Mr. Ray Cross, okay, Civic Association member, as well as some other members that got us some door prizes to make this a little more fun and interesting for everyone and reward you for coming out and doing your civic responsibility as far as learning about your candidates. And what we're going to do is do a couple of candidates and then do a couple of door prizes just to change it up, and if you want to get refreshments in between or whatever. Okay, okay. Anyway, scratch that. Okay, so, all right, so the first door prize that I'm giving out, there's a couple of signs posted. I want to acknowledge those merchants that supported us from Williston Park. This one is from a gift certificate to Angelina's on Hillside Avenue in Williston Park, okay, and I'm going to have Mr. Scott pick out a name. So everyone was welcome. This is not just for Williston Park members.
How many are we doing? 2?
Dorian Airbar. Former mayor of Williston Park. Okay. Okay, the next one. Okay, I'll give it to you, Dorian. Okay. The next one is for Bagel Express on Hillside Avenue in Williston Park.
Jamie Murphy. Where's Jamie?
Where's Jamie Murphy? Jamie Murphy?
He was here. I don't know. That's you know. I can give it to him.
Okay, if he's not here, we're going to have to pull another one, right? Okay. Did he leave? Does anybody know? Is he still in the room?
No.
Okay. Okay. Maggie Nasta. Maggie Nasta. Okay. Maggie Nasta, you have to come back to Williston Park and buy bagels. Okay? All right, I'm going to turn the mic back over to the president.
Somebody else's name out of the hat there. Maggie wanted to put it back.
Oh, Maggie.
I know.
Richard Dearlam.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next up is Judy Bosworth, who's the president, North Hempstead supervisor, in right now for the Democratic Party.
No, thank you. Thanks, Ed. Well, good evening. It's so wonderful to be here with you. I'm looking at and see so many friends and familiar faces, and it's just great to be here. Many of you know me and have known me for a long time, but I'll just do just a brief accounting of my background. I was a former New York City school teacher, which is why you see me wearing orange and black, as it's almost Halloween, and that second grade teacher in me will always look for the color in the holiday. I was that typical stay-at-home mom. I taught until I had my kids. And then I just became very active in the community. And I was president of this PTA and that PTA, and ultimately became a member of the Great Neck Board of Education. I served on that board for 16 years. So any of you who know about boards of education know that that's a very long time to serve on a board of education. And I was president of that board for 5 years. I then became a Nassau County legislator, served on the legislature for 6 years, and now am currently the North Hempstead Town Supervisor. And I'm so proud and honored to have that position. It's been just a true joy. We've done a lot of things in the town. One of the things that I'm so proud of is the fact that we have an open and transparent government. One of the first things I did when I became supervisor is I moved the comment period at board meetings up to the beginning of the meeting, so that if somebody wanted to come and speak to the town board, they had the opportunity to do it at the very beginning and not have to wait until the very end when you probably get tired and go home. So that was a good thing. We live stream our board meetings. That was something that had not been done before. We vote on our budgets before Election Day, and there's a good reason for that. Budget is the black and white document of the administrators and administration's philosophy. Too often you'd see municipalities present a budget that had like a 1% increase or a no % increase. Then there's an election, and lo and behold, oh, that was the draft budget, but now it's an 8% increase. So we make sure that the budget is voted on before Election Day. People ask us about the fiscal well-being of our town. Well, I will tell you, we're in pretty good shape, and I'll tell you how. When I first became supervisor, we had a good bond rating. It was AA1 with a stable outlook. But we thought we could do better. We really worked hard. And so the rating was raised to AA1 with a positive outlook. And at my State of the Town address in January, I said, you know what, that's good, but our goal is to be AAA, thinking to myself, yeah, I don't know if we can actually do that. But we did. And in March, we were assigned a AAA rating by Moody's. And so what's the significance of that? It means that when we bond to do capital projects, the interest rate that we're charged is the very lowest because our bond rating is the very highest. AAA is the highest municipal bond rating that a municipality can have. So that's something that we are very proud of. Our state controller just came out with a fiscal stress rating. I'm going to try to talk fast. And so Nassau, we were had the lowest fiscal stress rating in Nassau County. We were found to have a 5% stress rating with the prediction that at the end of 2017 it would be below 2%. To put that in perspective, yes, we're the lowest in Nassau County, and you could say, well, okay, that's not a very big accomplishment, but we are the second lowest in all of Long Island. The only other town on Long Island that has lowest stress rating than North Hempstead is Shelter Island. And I think there are like, 10 people that live there. So this is something that gives you an indication of the fact that we are fiscally responsible, fiscally conservative, wanting to make sure that we are doing the best that we can with your tax dollars. Since I have been supervisor, every budget has been below the tax cap with the help of my very wonderful town board members. Some of them are here today. I see Angelo in the audience. And so this is a great accomplishment. In terms of reform, we've done some terrific ethics reform. We had some challenges, no question. So we have an anti-nepotism policy. The anti-nepotism policy is that if anybody works in the town, we need to know if they have a relative in the town. The highway superintendent was mentioned, I'm sure that he's no longer with the town. But one of the issues that we are taking care of is that no one is allowed to work in a department and be supervised by a relative. You cannot be supervised by a relative. A relative cannot be in charge of your promotions, your discipline. So that has been taken care of. Another thing that I think is very, very important, thank you, is that if you're an elected official in the town of North Hempstead, no relative of yours can work in the town of North Hempstead government. I don't know that there's any other town that has that stipulation, but that's an important thing. And we've done a lot of reforms. I'm also very concerned about our environment. We have Clark Gardens, by the way. If you have a chance, go over to Spooky Walk. It's really fabulous. But we have bat houses up in Clark Gardens. Why? Because, and by the way, North Hempstead actually does have bats. We didn't bring them in. They're here naturally. And they eat mosquitoes. One bat can eat 1,000 mosquitoes in an hour. So that is a great way of controlling our mosquito population without putting toxic chemicals into the ground. This year we also introduced quails into our town. What's so great about quails? They eat ticks. So we have found, studies have shown that any area that has quails has no ticks. So we're controlling the tick population. I'm done. There's so much more. But anyhow, thank you. I really enjoyed the opportunity.
All right, does anybody have okay. There goes your first one.
Steve, the first candidate, mentioned that he thinks best practices is to push the assessment down to the town level. What's your take on that?
So I had mentioned that I was a Nassau County legislator, so I saw the issues that the county is facing. It's an interesting proposal. It's something that we have to think a lot about because the county is having a very difficult time dealing with assessments. Perhaps the town could do a better job, but that would now be adding a whole level of government to the town. We would have to have an assessor's office. We would be responsible for assessing all the properties. We would be responsible for dealing with the challenges in assessments. So it's something, as far as I'm concerned, you always consider all options. Everything needs to be considered. But I can't tell you standing here right now that that's something that I think each of the towns should take on. We're all living with a tax cap. I would imagine that having to hire the people to do the assessments, having to hire all the staff that would be in charge of that would add quite a bit to our town budget. And I don't know how that would be possible.
But that wouldn't be a problem because if you had assessments in the town, you wouldn't have it in the county. So the people that are working for the county would then be working assessments in each town. The three towns and the two cities.
Yeah, but they would be on our, in other words, we would have to hire them. So it's a different payroll.
I know. Yeah. But we still would be paying for it as a taxpayer.
Correct.
As a taxpayer, whether we pay it to the county or the town, we're still going to be paying it in our tax.
Absolutely, and I agree with you 100%. But again, we're under a state mandated tax cap.
I think it's a good idea.
Well, it's, as I said, it's something that we have to explore. You can't just make a snap. Yeah, it's so easy to say, sure, let's do it. But the devil is in the details. So I need to know what those details were. But thank you for asking the question. And I just want to say thank you to Peter Gahn for leading the pledge. Peter's part of our Veterans Advisory Committee. We have a Veterans Advisory Committee that does such a phenomenal job in making sure that the needs of our veterans are really taken care of in the town.
If it's going to be a quick question,
yeah,
we have 41 seconds.
I just want to say how wonderful Bob Beach, North Hempstead Harbor is. You've done a great job on it. Absolutely.
All right, it looks like you have no more questions. All right, next up is Legislative Laura Curran. She's running for the Nassau County Executive. I got it, Bob, my tongue's working. It's dry, but it's working. Meditation.
Thank you very much. Hi, good evening, everybody. Good evening. I want to thank the Williston Park, Albertson, and South Park Civics for hosting this. And I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your night to come and hear your candidates. So my name's Laura Curran. I am currently a county legislator down on the South Shore. And it was really never part of my plan to get into politics. I have a background as a newspaper reporter, and I got into public service, much like Judy, through my kids. I wanted to do what I could to help my school succeed where I live and to help my community succeed, so I ran for my local school board down in Baldwin. And I won that election, and I found that I loved it. It was right when the tax cap was first implemented, so we had to make some tough choices. But I love dealing with the budget, I love dealing with policy, I even love dealing with the angry people in the grocery store. And it just sparked my interest to step up and serve my community in a bigger way. You know, as president of the school board, we dealt with the budget that it was $120 million a year. And I had the opportunity then to run for county legislator. And as a legislator, I'm very proud of the reputation that I've carved out as someone who puts her constituents first. I'm not afraid to reach across the aisle when it's the right thing to do for the people that I represent, because I truly believe that we are public servants. We are here to serve the public. But as proud as I am of my accomplishments, I don't want to sugarcoat it. As a legislator, I've had a front row seat to the corruption, to the dysfunction, and to the mismanagement. And it's incredibly frustrating, because I know who lives in our communities. I know how hard people work. I know what kind of taxes they pay. And I truly believe that they deserve a government that lives up to them. And that's why I'm in this race. You don't have to be a county legislator to know what I'm talking about. When you see our elected officials being carted off in handcuffs on federal corruption charges, you know that the system is broken. So I have laid out very concrete plans of how we can begin to restore trust in government, how we can make sure that we hire based on what you know, not who you know. And I'm actually going to copy something that Judy Bosworth has done in the town of Hempstead, town of North Hempstead, in her ethics reform. She has started something called the town checkbook, so that every vendor who gets written a check with taxpayer money, every contractor who gets paid with taxpayer money, that check is online for people to see. Didn't cost a lot of money. She said she was going to do it, and she did it. That is something we can do on the county level as well. It's not complicated. And if you remember, a lot of these arrests and scandals that we've seen have stemmed from unethical contracting. So even if people don't go to the website and look at it, just the fact that they know that it's there, people will behave much better. So, you know, my husband and I moved to Baldwin, where I live now. We moved to Long Island, moved to Nassau, really for the Long Island dream. The single-family house, the great schools, the parks, the beaches, and we knew that we were going to pay high taxes, but it was part of a deal that we were willing to make. But as a taxpayer and as a legislator, I am incredibly frustrated when I see our money being squandered on no-show jobs, on patronage, on nepotism, on sweetheart contracts. Because guess what? It's your money that's being wasted when that happens. That's your money. As I said before, we're public servants. It's like customer service. You pay us for services, and you expect us to provide those services efficiently, ethically, and responsibly. So, you know, in this election for the county executive, I don't know if you realize this, but the turnout is expected to be less than 30%. So less than 30% of people will vote. So you'll be hearing from my opponent soon, and I urge you to vote for whomever you think is the best one. I obviously think it's me, but I'm a little bit biased. But the more you turn out, whoever wins, we will be held accountable, and that's what we need. So I thank you very much for your attention, and I would be happy to take any questions.
I have a question.
I understand you have the support and you've been endorsed by many people and groups that believe in sanctuary cities, like Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie and the Working Families Party. How do you feel about Nassau County as a sanctuary county?
Yes, thank you for the question. It's a great question. I do not believe that Nassau County should be a sanctuary county. I think when you see, as we've just read in the paper, of remains being found and suspected MS-13 murders being committed here, we've seen it in Suffolk as well, I think that we need to make sure that our police officers can work with the federal partners that they need to work with to go after these criminals, to do the kinds of wiretaps and investigations that they need. And so I do not think it is appropriate for Nassau County to be a sanctuary county.
Hi, as a young woman, I was just curious if you have any women working at your senior level, like of staff for your campaign.
I have some great women. My field director is a woman, my policy director is a woman, and I'm very proud. And as county executive, I will make sure that my administration looks like the county, whether it comes to hiring enough women and all kinds of people who, you know, reflect who live in this county. So absolutely, I think women have a lot to offer, and just as much as men. I'm sure everyone will agree with me. And I love their expertise, And I'm very lucky to be working among so many great women and some great men as well. So thanks for the question.
Anybody else?
I see on all these lawns this sign, State Constitution, no. I don't even know why I should vote yes, but I feel like voting yes just because everybody's telling me no. So what's your take on it?
So you have a mind of your own. I like that. You're independent. Yeah, that's right. So every 20 years, it comes to a public referendum whether or not the people of New York State want to open up the Constitution and change it. And I'm actually not going to vote for this. I'm not supporting of the Constitutional Convention because I'm concerned that our Constitution contains many protections for many of us, and they will be vulnerable. So it's a complicated process. It's going to cost about $350 million if I'm right to do this. So that's one thing. It's a lot of money. Second of all, each Senate district will be able to send 3 delegates, and then there'll be 15 others. So it's hundreds of people will be going to talk about, to argue and all of this about what the new Constitution should look like. But my concern is that these delegates will be funded by special interests, and that the special interests with the deepest pockets will have a say in what our Constitution will look like. So they might not be looking out for the rest of us. And so I think there's just too much at stake. I personally am not for it, but it's even. Apparently, it's even in the polls. Here on Long Island, I don't see a lot of support for it, but apparently in the rest of the state there is. So I hope that helps. Okay.
All right. At this time, we're unabashedly going to ask for a photo op.
Oh. No other questions before we do this. All right.
Anyone else?
Anyone want to join?
Yes. Don't worry, Jack. You'll have your chance too.
Hey, give us a look back here, Ed.
Okay, since there are no other questions, I'd like to call up at this time.
Thank you for your attention.
I'd like to call up Jack Martins at this time. He's the Republican candidate for county executive.
Good evening, everyone. Great to be with you again. My name is Jack Martins. I'm running for Nassau County Executive on the Republican, Conservative, and Reform lines. Married to Paula for 22 years, raising our 4 daughters. Katie's a junior in high school. Vanessa's, junior in college. Vanessa's a senior in high school. Emma's in 7th grade, and Caroline's in 4th grade. Grew up in Mineola. Graduated from Chaminade, went down to American University, got my degree there, came back and got my law degree at St. John's, and started practicing law with a litigation firm in Garden City before starting my own firm in Mineola. I'm one of those individuals who was fortunate enough to be elected mayor of the village where he grew up. So I was the mayor of Mineola in 2003. In 2002, I was elected a trustee. In 2003, I was elected mayor, and I was the mayor from 2003 to 2010. In 2010, I had the good fortune of being elected to the New York State Senate, representing the 7th Senate District, where I served for 3 terms between 10 and 16, including the Albertson, Williston Park, Roslyn Heights area as well. All of North Hempstead, Hicksville and Oyster Bay, and Stewart Manor, and Elmont in the town of Hempstead. So it's great to be with you again. As we address some of the, I think, critical issues facing our communities, which is, frankly, the issues facing our county today. Let's start with one understanding I think we can all agree. Neither Legislator Curran nor myself are corrupt, and I think we should get that off the plate for 1 second, because we all have lived with the realities of both parties violating the public trust. Too many people have been handcuffed, too many people have been indicted, and too many people have been carted away, some convicted and in jail right now. Democrats and Republicans. And so let's get beyond who and what happened in the past, and let's talk about who's best qualified to deal with the issues facing our county today. As a mayor, I had the opportunity to take a village that literally, for all effects, was bankrupt. When I was elected, they said, congratulations, you won. The village has no reserves, has a $500,000 shortfall from last year, has a $33 million in debt, $22 million is in short-term debt. You got to go to Moody's in a couple of months and ask them to allow you to roll over the short-term debt into long-term debt. When you have short-term debt, you pay interest on it only. When you have to convert it into long-term, you have to start paying down principal and interest. So I was tasked with taking a bankrupt village, dealing with the debt, and paying it down. And so in 8 years as mayor, we did that. We paid down the debt from $33 million to a little over $22 million. We reassessed the village's assessment system because we were paying about $1.3 million against a $12 million tax base, just simply because we didn't have proper assessment. We all know what that means in our own Nassau County taxes because the system is broken. And by reassessing, we were able to reduce the assessment in Nassau, in Mineola, from $1.3 million a year in refunds to about $300,000 and save $1 million simply by getting it right. We fixed our roads, we redid our downtown, we redid our master plan, we built the Mineola Boulevard Bridge, the Roslyn Road Grade Crossing Elimination Project, the intermodal center down at the train station, and for those who are familiar with the area, which most of us here in the room are, the village today is a remarkably different place than it was in 2003. And as a result, in 2010, I was elected to the New York State Senate. And if you remember those days, it was the Spitzer-Patterson days. Well, I was elected in 2010, and for the last 6 years, we passed on-time budgets, cut taxes, increased our funding for our local schools and infrastructure, supported our emergency responders, and was able to work hand in hand, working across the aisle with my dear friend Michelle Schimmel on things like water and firematics and fire safety, passed bills in the Senate and the Assembly to get things done. Ladies and gentlemen, I have not been a person who sat in the front row and watched, but somebody who, everywhere I've been asked to serve and everywhere I have served, has been an active participant in making things better. And so whether it was in my own village or whether it was in the state working across the aisle to fix the issues that were facing the state, we made things better. I understand the issues that are facing Nassau County as an executive, but also as someone who dealt with these issues regionally in New York State. I understand the issues that are facing Nassau County, the financial issues, the assessment issues, the need for economic development, the need for infrastructure improvements, and again, to borrow a phrase, I can do it because I've done it. And so I'm asking for your support. The election is literally 11 days from now. And so when it comes to experience, to the opportunity to understand the issues and to be able to deal with the issues on day one, my motivation is simple. People ask, why are you running for county executive? And I tell them about my family and I tell them about my children, and we all want the same thing. We want to have the ability for our children to return home, be able to afford to live here, find a job, and be able to raise their families right here. And so that's my motivation. That's why I'm involved. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity to serve as your county executive so we can deal with these issues head on, once and for all, because let's face it, the county that led us out of World War II and created suburban communities, an example for the rest of the country, has to be better than a county that has accepted the fact that we've been under receivership for the last 17 years.
Yes.
And so that's our responsibility, and I'm committed to fixing it. And then I'll go back into the private sector where I can spend more time with my family and go back and do what we're supposed to do, which is spend a limited time in government and then go back and actually spend time in the private sector. I'm a small business owner, and as a small business owner, I'm looking forward to doing my part and then going back. That's why we need term limits. And if elected, I will enact term limits for county executive, no more than 8 years, and for county legislature, no more than 10 years. People need to not make elected office a career. They have to understand that they're there for a limited amount of time. It's their responsibility to do what they're going to do and then get out, because someone else also has the opportunity to move the ball forward. We have to care more about fixing it than we do about getting reelected. And so I'm asking for your help. The election is 11 days from now, and as Laura said, and I agree with her, regardless of who you support, remember to vote, but I'm asking for your support on November 11th so we can hit the ground running on January 1st. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much. On November 7th, 11 days from now, so we can hit the ground running. Yes. Thank you.
I can't vote for you on November 11th.
Thank you.
There is a question period of 5 minutes.
What would you do about the opiate problem in Nassau County?
Thank you. Thanks for that question. I appreciate it. You know, the question is, what do you do about the heroin epidemic, the opioid problem in Nassau County? You know, when I was in the state senate, I served on the heroin task force. We went around the state listening to testimony, and we passed laws. I was the sponsor of a half dozen laws in the state that became laws that dealt with it, that required that insurance companies now provide coverage for people who are addicts, to make sure that they get short-term and long-term treatment, to make sure that schools teach addiction, because not only do we have to deal with the current generation, but we have to look at future generations to make sure that we begin bending the curve back. Because, ladies and gentlemen, nationwide there were more than 50,000 people, unfortunately, who died of heroin overdoses last year alone. And just let the numbers sink in, more than 50,000 people. Nowhere has it been felt more strongly than right here on Long Island. Between Suffolk and Nassau County, more people have died here proportionally than anywhere else in the country. 200 in Nassau County alone over the last 2 years. And so, right now, if someone overdoses, call 911, police and our police medics arrive at the house. They administer Narcan or naloxone, which is a drug that revives the person. But we have to remember that when you overdose, you've essentially committed suicide. But for the naloxone, the person would be dead. But we're able to revive them. We put them on the back of the ambulance. We take them to the hospital. And does anyone want to guess what they do next? They sign themselves out. They go home.
Yep.
And they do it again. I spoke to a police officer from the 3rd Precinct who relayed to me that he went to the same house for the same person 3 times in one shift. Now, we can all talk about what that means. The second time that they actually showed up at the emergency room with somebody who had overdosed, and they allowed them to sign themselves out again. But we have to be better than that. And so we proposed 2 things. As county executive, one, we have to take a keen interest in creating more long-term treatment beds. In Nassau County, we don't have enough. When people want treatment, there are not enough facilities right now, and we happen to have a medical center that has 2 empty floors. 2 empty floors at the medical center right now. Let's take one of those floors, let's build it into a long-term treatment facility, and let's make sure when people have that moment of lucidity when they want to get treatment, that we have a path to it right here in Nassau County. The second point is, I think, a little bit more provocative, but I think it's important that we take this step. When someone overdoses, they get taken to the hospital. I say they get held for 72 hours in the hospital. If I overdose, if I try to commit suicide taking a handful of pills, the law allows for the hospital to hold me for 72 hours for observation. But if I take a handful of Oxycontin and I overdose and they revive me, I get to sign myself out. It doesn't make sense. And so let's understand, if the detox period for heroin is 72 hours, which it is, and the law allows for the person to be held for 72 hours, I want to make sure that the person who overdoses is held for 72 hours in a medical facility so that they can get the care that they need and get the counseling that they need. And if we have the treatment center, we can take the person and actually put them on a path to sobriety, as opposed to allowing them to just simply sign themselves out and go back and continue to take the drugs. So there are 37 states in the country right now that have mandatory involuntary confinement post-overdose. 37 states. New York isn't one of them. I say New York should be one of them. Nassau County can be the first county that does it. And somebody mentioned very quickly, how do you pay for it? I'll tell you how you're going to pay for it. One, if the insurance companies do not pay for it, there are 600 people every year in Nassau County who overdose and who are revived and are part of this revolving door. 600. I spoke to the hospital presidents and they said it's going to cost $1,000 a day. So 600 times 3 days times $1,000 is $1.8 million. The county has a $3 billion budget. I guarantee you, if we pass it, we'll find the $1.8 million in a $3 billion budget to give people hope, to keep them alive, and to hopefully put them on the path to sobriety. It's $1.8 million in a $3 billion budget, and I think it's worth it for us to do it. Thank you.
Can we do that as a county, or we have to wait for the state to kick in?
We can do it as a county. We got a legal opinion that the county, using its police power, can actually, the county legislature can pass a local law that says that in Nassau County, as a matter of law, in Nassau County, anyone who overdoses on heroin is deemed to be a danger to themselves, and under that law, that would trigger the 72 hours. So we can do that.
What can we do to stop it from coming in, though? That was really my question, was to stop it from coming to Nassau, not what to do afterwards, but to actually stop it.
Yeah. We have to support our law enforcement, give them the tools that they need, allow them to continue to work with state and federal task forces, and they're doing that right now. There's so much of it, it's so cheap, and it's coming in. It also involves, and I spoke to some law enforcement officials at the airports. It's coming in many respects through the airports as well, and we have to work in coordination with them to make sure that they're able to stop it where it's coming in. It's not just from other states, it's also coming in from the airport as well.
All right, I'm sorry, that's all the time that we have for questions.
Just one more. Yes, please. I'll keep it very short. I took too long on that answer.
I'm a Nassau County crossing guard, and so is Mary. We're very short on crossing guards. I don't know if you know that.
I do.
We have recruits out on crossings. All of our cops pretty much are all on crossings. Is there a plan to that? Is there anything, what do you say about this?
Crossing guards, there was a report that came out. I'll keep it very short. There was a report that came out that said that we should save money by getting rid of crossing guards, getting rid of, the Marine Bureau, getting rid of the volunteer firefighter training facility. I have made a commitment that we're not going to do that. We've got to bring more people in, and we have to stop relying on, these because when we don't have a crossing guard, you know what they do? Put a police officer there. Right. And so we got to keep our police officers patrolling, and we got to make sure we have adequate number of crossing guards, and that's a commitment that we have. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity. Have a good night.
Why don't you ask him personally?
Ed, this way too, please.
Thank you very much.
Ed.
Let me mention again, we're trying to move the program along. Most of the candidates are willing to stay here and discuss any concerns that you might have in a private setting, either in the back of the room or over there at the hospitality table. But I'm sorry, we do have to keep the program moving. Now, at this juncture, Terry, to get the floor to talk, we'd like to award a couple more door prizes.
Door prizes? I want to hear about my big tax.
Smoker's going to get arrested for a bribe.
Guess my door prize? Love my tax.
Rosetta Morris. Rosetta Morris?
Oh, Rosetta.
Here's Rosetta. Rosetta, this is from Cullen Nail in Williston Park. Rosetta? Ah.
And Susan D'Ambrosio. Susan D'Ambrosio, you won something.
Susan, you got Memories, a gift certificate from Memories in Williston Park on Eastside Avenue. They donated 2 gift certificates. There's signs up all of our local establishments that supported our efforts.
All right, folks, up next is going to be Angelo Farrar. He's the councilman for North Hempstead, running with the Republican Party. I want to mention again, we had reached out to his opponent, and I guess we haven't heard from him yet.
Mr. Vadamala said he would be here, but unfortunately he's not. So we just want to make it clear that we've given a fair chance to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I see so many familiar faces. Here's my wife. Here's my next door neighbors. Here's Tess, my aunt. And I have other neighbors here also. My wife and I, we were really brought up and raised in Queens. And when we got married, people from Queens. But when we got married and had our children, especially the first two, we decided we wanted to change the environment and move to something that would be better for them to grow up in. And we looked around, drove around in some neighborhoods, and came into North Hempstead. And it was actually Garden City Park, New Hyde Park area, but in the town of North Hempstead. And what we saw, we really liked. So we bought a house and we moved in there. But we also wanted to give back as soon as we moved in there because we also felt it was our responsibility to help the community and develop the community that we're in. So I managed Little League for 17 years, even after my 4 sons were out, because they still had a need. And my one daughter was in Little League for 1 day, till she got the pink jacket, and then she quit. So we didn't get involved in much of that. But I have been involved in the town for a long time doing a lot of things. I was a president and co-founder of the Greater Herrick Civic Association because there were some issues going on in the town that were not favorable to the public, and we had to take them on, and we took them on. I was at every town board meeting with other people in the committee for 5 years, and I had no intentions of ever getting involved in politics. My wife sucked me dumb, but I had no intention of getting into politics. I was active in the community with the Knights of Columbus, the Kiwanis. I was the director of the Heart Council of Long Island. I was on the board of the SAS Foundation for Breast Cancer Awareness. I was on the board of the Dante, I am on the board of the Dante Foundation, which gives scholarships out to needy children. So I've really been very active in the Lions Club also, but I've really been very active in the community again because I have 5 children and I wanted to set an example, and I expect my children to do as I did and give back to the community that they grew up in. It's that important. I ran for office, and quite honestly, I didn't want to run, but both parties were kind of pressuring me to run, and they wore me down, and I did run. I am a Republican. I'm running on the Republican, the Independents, the Conservative, and the Reform parties. So I have 4 lines that I'm going to be on this year. But more important than all of that is, I work for you. That's what I do. I don't ask people when they need help, whether they're Republican, Democrat, or whatever else. I don't even ask them if they live in my district. And 80% of the people that I help don't live in my district. But I do because I care and I take this thing seriously. I took this job and this position for the right reason. I took it for you. I didn't take it for me. It actually cost me money to do this job. In business, I'm not an attorney, I was in private sector. I was vice president of a number of companies, making over $300,000 a year. I gave that up for a $30,000 councilman job. And my mother and father are looking down from heaven, saying, what a financial genius we raised. But it was that important to me, and it's still that important to me. I'm here today because we think we need to do things even better than we have in the past, because everything changes. I know we talked a little bit about the building department before, and there are problems in the building department. And we need to do something to fix that. We approved a raise in some of the fees with the stipulation that any of that money that was raised would only go to hire people for the building department. We need to look at some of the ridiculous laws we have on the books. I mean, we have some stupid things on the books. And that causes nothing but bottlenecking with our building department, causes people that really have important issues not to be dealt with because we're doing so many other things that are not that important. So we need to really clean that up. And we're going to do that. We're going to absolutely do that. The rest of the town board, the supervisor and I have had this conversation, and we need to make it happen. But to give you an example of the stupid laws that we have on the books, somebody came to me, they had a pool in their backyard, and they wanted to put a fence around the pool so that they could see the kids. They won't have to worry about them falling in, but that they could see them as they're having dinner and sitting in the backyard. Well, the town calls for it to be a stockade fence. Now, how do you look through a stockade fence? It makes absolutely no. They wanted to put a wrought iron fence, but the town said you can't. It took me 6 months to rewrite that law so that they now have a wrought iron fence around their pool that they can see through. So there's just numerous things like that that get in the way of doing the right thing for the people we serve. And we're not about that. I think that, you know, you've heard from some of the candidates today, I think you got a clear understanding of the fact that corruption is not a party-affiliated issue. Corruption is an individual issue, and people make bad decisions, and they should be held accountable for it. So please, I would ask, I know that people, Jack said, just get out and vote. You don't have to vote for me, but get out and vote. Please vote for me. Thank you all, and God bless you. And by the way, one of the things fiscally that we took care of, which happened right here, was there was a Roslyn Country Club. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. They tried to pass that. I objected strongly to it because they wanted to pass the burden, the tax burden, on everybody else, which was not fair. And Ed Scott took a very active role and got petitions signed, and the town board defeated that, turned that over, and made it what it should have been. If they wanted to be a country club, pay for it. No problem with that. Thank you. Okay. 3 minutes for questions.
Ron?
Except my wife, she can't ask.
Ron's going to ask the first.
All right, a hot topic.
He doesn't need a mic.
A hot topic came up here a month ago. I spoke. A lot of people were interested in what I had to say. And I would like to ask you this. We have a problem going on in these towns with people moving into houses and then subletting the houses out to 8 people, 10 people, 12 people. And basically, I have a boarding house across the street from me now. So we're addressing it with the town, and I can't say the town isn't giving us some attention. They are. I give Judy credit. She's giving me attention. But the town attorneys all seem to differ in their belief in what laws represent us and what ones don't. Basically, North Hempstead attorney said that people are allowed to live as a commune in a house. Now, I believe this law came about back in the Waco days when people were running cults and living on campuses and things like that. But what I want to know is, why does one town attorney feel that that law, that Supreme Court decision, that you can put a community in a house of 15 people that are not blood related and say that they're a communal family, when other townships here on Long Island don't believe that crap? Because I just read in the paper last week that out in East Hampton, they raided 32 homes and 3 motels for exactly the same thing that I'm describing right here, and that township doesn't seem to be worried about that Supreme Court decision. So I want to know why some towns are concerned with it and some towns are not concerned with it, and what do I do to get a boarding house off my block so that the house I've been paying for 37 years to build up my biggest asset that I happen to have in my life, how do I get that not reduced by 50%? Because nobody's going to buy the damn thing with a boarding house across the street.
Ron, what was the name of the real estate company that was involved?
East Coast Realty, please, nobody do business with them. I want to boycott this company, and I'd like Williston Park and New Hyde Park to do the same thing.
Well, I think that's actually ridiculous for anybody to think that that's a family. That is absolutely ridiculous. And for any individual, and I'm not sure who the attorney was, but any individual that feels that way, my thing would be to replace the attorney. Okay? We have a right and a responsibility to have a good quality of life in this community. And I think the elected officials have the responsibility to make sure that you get that. And you are in a single family home environment. Now, of course, there are some 2-family legal, but that's what it is, and that's what it should be maintained at.
I have all 1-family homes on my block. I have 13, 14 people living in a house across the street from me, and 10 different cars with plates from 8 different states. Okay, it's insanity.
I think we need to get very much more aggressive in going after that, prosecuting, and taking. See, one of the problems that we have in government, is the penalties aren't strong enough. So if you have a house and somebody is renting something illegally, and you fine them $1,000 or $100 or $1,000, even $1,000, you look over the course of the year how much money they make it on that illegal house. It's still profitable for them to do that. But if you escalate the fines and say, well, you know what, now it's 1,000. Next time it's 10,000. Next time it's 100,000, and the time after that, I own your house. We need to start being more aggressive and do what's right for this community, not what is, quote, politically correct. Okay? Thank you.
Tess, do you need the mic?
No, I don't need a mic. I never needed a mic. I project. And I have a legal two-family house. And let me tell you something. I'm the only one, I think, in the state of New York that has 10 smoke alarms and 3 gas things because they come to my house every 2 years. And I prefer it that way because I want nobody knocking on my door and saying I'm doing anything illegal. I have never rented that house. We have never had more than 2 children going to school in my house because that's the way it is. But with the illegals, they go to our school district.
I know. Yes, you're preaching to the choir. I agree.
Absolutely.
Absolutely agree.
And I think something should be done. That it's, for that man, I feel sorry. I absolutely do.
But we need to do something.
I'm worried about the house in back of me. It's about an 8-room house, and it's for sale for East Coast.
Oh.
That's for sale. And it's 8 rooms.
All right, we got you. Anybody else?
Never needed my
East Coast.
Peggy, you want a question? You have a question?
You have an easy
Yes, I think so. There's been situations in our area whereby people are calling the town about things going on in their houses. And it's causing a problem amongst neighbors, and it's escalating.
Okay, very quickly. I've heard this complaint from a number of people. You have people that are taking calls in on 311, but they're anonymous. So you have a number of people in different areas that may have a little bit of a problem with some of their other neighbors, so they're calling up without having to leave a name and causing havoc to those other families. I spoke to Judy Bosworth about that 2 weeks ago, and I said we really need to relook at that and require people to leave their names if they're going to call up and make a complaint. Thank you all. God bless you all. Have a good night.
I have to take a minute here to interject something. We'll have the next two candidates on our list shortly. But I just wanted to remind you that this is a presentation that's brought to by the hard work of all of our civic associations, and we need your support. You really should consider joining our organizations. Those of you who have anything to do with Wilson Park, we have our application blanks outside there, and Ed Scott is the president of the Albertson Civic Association, and anyone who is not associated with it now should really consider joining it. And I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of a couple of elected officials who either are not running for election or who weren't on tonight's feature. We have Town Clerk Wayne Wink is with us tonight, and we also have Mayor of the Incorporated Village of Wilson Park, Paul Airbar, with us tonight. And if there are any other public officials who would like to be acknowledged. No, but he's running. He's running. Now, without any further jabberwocky, let me ask Mr. Nicolello to please come up. Mr. Nicolello is the candidate for re-election. We did reach out to his opponent as we did in the other cases, and we never heard from him.
There are times that, again, you know, our politicians, a lot of them were quick to jump on for the things they do wrong. But what we don't do is when somebody does help us out, I'd like to point out, especially to the people in Albertson, Richard Nicolello had his big part in our new park that we got, our clock that we got, getting our banners done up and down the street, helping us out with the trees all along Willis Avenue, and he's going to be helping us out with IU Willits with a couple of projects that we come on. I want to acknowledge him on that and what he's done for us.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you to the civics, to Wilson Park, South Park,
Albertson Civics, for sponsoring this, and thank you for all for coming out. Just a word about my opponent. He's not here. He had actually heart surgery several weeks ago, so he is not here. He's not campaigning, but he's recovering nicely. His son's in the room, and so certainly don't hold that against him. I want to let you know, I learned a lot tonight. I know that now that in North Hempstead there are ticket-eating quails running around. I learned that Angelo gave up a $300,000 job for a $30,000 job. Is that job still available? I learned that nobody wants assessment. The county doesn't want it, the town didn't want it, so it's going back and forth. And just by the way, one other thing. Does anyone know the derivation of the term politics? Politics. 2 words. Poly meaning many, ticks meaning blood-sucking parasites. I mean, how often do you get to tell tick jokes? This is a local election. And thank you again for coming out, because most people get involved and get interested when the national races are up, the state races are up. But as we all know, your local officials, your local government has a much bigger impact on your quality of life. And it's more true than ever than with respect to the suburbs. So a local election is about your suburbs and where have we come from, where are we now, and where are we going. And there's a number of issues that we can talk about, a number of major issues affecting all those things. But the first issue is something that really hasn't been mentioned tonight. It's the most important issue in every poll, and it's the most important issue on here, which is property taxes. We in Nassau County pay some of the highest real property taxes in the nation. And with that in mind, we in the Republican majority have set out over the last 7 or 8 years to hold the line of taxes. In fact, in the county's portion of your taxes, we have frozen taxes for the last 6 or the last 7 years. That means that the portion of taxes that go to county, your tax bill has gone from 19% to 16%. We've done that by reducing spending, we've lowered the debt, and even NIFR, which is our oversight board, as well as the rating agencies, have indicated that we've done a good job in terms of making progress. More progress has to be made, but the commitment has to be there going forward that we will do, all of us in government will do all that we can in our parts, in the county, towns, and school districts, to keep taxes level. I mean, it's difficult to bring them down, they need to be over time, but at the very minimum, we need to stop increasing the burden on our seniors and our young families. The second issue I wanted to mention is economic growth. It's vital that we have a growing economy here in Nassau County. You look at our young people that are leaving, they've always been leaving, and they've always found other attractive places across the country to go to. What I've noticed in the last couple of years is that our young people now are leaving here to go to the city. So we're losing people to go into the city, which used to be the opposite. So we have to have those high-paying jobs. We have to have an attractive environment. We have to bring businesses here. We have to have the housing that's going to keep our young people here. And the other thing I wanted to mention, the other issue that I think is very important, is crime. It's come up in a couple of different ways. We all want our neighborhoods to be safe. We want our communities to be safe. We want our families to be safe. And the truth of the matter here is, here in Nassau County, we have one of the safest counties in the country. In fact, in 2016, the percentage of crime hit the lowest number it's hit since they've been keeping statistics since the 60s. So it is an overwhelmingly safe county. But the battle against crime is never completely won. It has to be fought on a continuous basis. We're very proud of the police department here in Nassau County. They're very professional. We've given them tremendous resources. They use technology to fight crime, and they do it very, very effectively. However, there are issues on the horizon. As we brought up before, you have the issues of gangs and MS-13, which is raising its head not only in Suffolk, but here in Nassau County as well. And you have the opioid crisis. By the way, there was a special on about Vietnam. It was a really heartbreaking look at the war. And some 58,000 Americans died in that war. Do you know that 50,000 Americans died last year due to opioid overdoses? I mean, it is a raging epidemic. But we have to give our police the resources they need. And yes, they have to cooperate with the feds. They haven't been doing that in Suffolk. They're starting to do that now. But we in Nassau have been doing that. And yes, we have to cooperate with the immigration officials. So our police have to be involved at all levels if we're going to fight this, if we're going to to take out those drug dealers, and we're going to battle those gangs. So I believe those are the most important issues facing our county: high taxes, economic growth, and keeping our neighborhoods safe. So with that having been said, I wanted to open the floor up to any questions that you guys might have.
I just mentioned I have a concern about speeding on Willis Avenue.
Speeding on Willis?
Speeding on Willis Avenue. They think it's a highway. They just go up and down and going to kill somebody.
Yeah, that's a common problem with cars speeding on roadways, especially if there's a straight run. They've done a number of things to try to slow traffic down in Willis and to try to change the way the lanes are configured, but you get a straightaway and they take off. Please call my office anytime you see that. Their precinct is very responsive to us when we call them. They do go out there. We can put the speed detector sign out, which helps for a little while, but it requires constant enforcement. And I have to tell you, the number of tickets that are being written by the police in Nassau County has gone way up over the last couple of years. So they are doing a little bit better job of enforcement. It's actually good for the county's budget as well. But it's, so we need to do better with enforcement. And again, they can be responsive. Yes, sir.
What about the increase in county fees? Every year it's going up and up. I mean, it's getting a little. I mean, if you're going to raise taxes, raise taxes.
The question he has is county fees. They seem to be going up every year. And Ed Magano did propose some $60 million in increased fees this year in our proposed budget. We submitted amendments on Monday to take them all out. So you're 100% right. They have gone up too much in the real estate industry, as well as with respect to the speed cameras, etc. So their proposal was to increase it by $60 million. Both Republicans and the Democrats have proposed amendments that will take them out. So we will pass a budget that does not have the fees in it. In the last couple of years, NIFA has oversight board has made us make changes after the election. I will tell you this, I will commit to you and promise to you that if NIFA does that again after the election, we will not raise fees, no matter what they do. We may have some difficult decisions to make, but fees will not be going up this year. They are too high. Yes, sir.
I just want to say, I love the doves, but how do I get the bats out of my garage and back over to the front
You know, when Judy mentioned about the bats, Ed's been busting my chops for years to get bats into the sump.
I thought we solved it. I was going to say, Ronnie, I'll be over tomorrow.
And you know, he's been telling us, and we've been trying to get the county to do that as well. But it's an innovative way to break down the mosquito population. So we hope to adopt that also. Okay, a minute left. Any more questions? All right. Well, thank you. Yes, they proposed to increase the surcharge on your tickets an additional $45 this year. So that, so as I said, we're taking that out. Yeah, it's more than tickets, but it's gotten too far. So again, we've taken the increase in fees out. They will not be passed. And I think over the next few years, as we continue to improve our county's financial situation, we're going to look to roll back some of those fees.
Okay. Joan Livick? Joan?
Joan, we got Franconis and Rose Park. Okay.
And Nat Cherney? Is that it? Go. Okay. Nat?
He left.
He left? That next name. I should just say Eddie Scott. Oh, Ravi? Ravi, where are you, Ravi? Again, you won again. TVs. What else did you get?
This is from Mantra Framing, sir.
But he was in charge of the
Framing on Williston Park, Hillside Ave.
Oh, I think it was the same. It's different.
Hold on, one more to get this over. Ray Cross.
Ray walks Hillside Avenue and gets some of these prizes, so that's his reward. He didn't get that one though. He didn't get that one. Enjoy. Yes. We have a couple more when we're done.
All right, I thank you very much for your cooperation and paying attention to a long evening. I suppose some of the speakers may not have been attuned to exactly something that you're interested in. Anyway, the last candidate that we have here is, and as I said, they were all presented in order of sign-in, not in any perceived order of how we think what they might be, is Mr. Schnirman, who is the Democratic candidate for county controller. May I ask you again the first name?
Jack Schnirman.
Jack Schnirman. Mr. Schnirman.
Thank you.
You have 6 minutes.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Jack Schnirman. I am running for Nassau County Controller. My wife and I live in Long Beach with our daughter Sage, who's going to be 2 the day after Election Day, so we'll have something to celebrate no matter what. And we have another baby actually on the way, so we're very excited. I grew up on Long Island. I went to school at Tufts University, got almost a full financial aid award. I've got a master's degree at Harvard University at the Kennedy School of Government. So I went to school literally to learn how to make organizations work more efficiently. And that's exactly the work I want to do for Nassau County. I came home to Long Island. I became the Chief Deputy Town Supervisor of the town of Brookhaven. Used to be called Crookhaven, until we brought a team in and cleaned that up. And for the past 6 years, I've been the city manager in the city of Long Beach. When I came in as city manager, the city was on the brink of bankruptcy. The city had just been downgraded a record 5 levels by Moody's Investor Service, stood on the brink of bankruptcy with near junk bond status, and had a record deficit. Over the last 6 years, the city of Long Beach has come a long way. We're back in the black now as a city. We've had 9 straight credit positive reviews by Moody's Investor Service on Wall Street. And of course, Superstorm Sandy hit us very hard. And we've rebuilt our city stronger, smarter, safer. Has anyone here been to our new boardwalk? Show of hands. Terrific. Thank you. Keep coming. We appreciate that. And I've not run for office before. I'm running for office to be your Nassau County Controller, very simply because I am so frustrated and disappointed in what I'm seeing in Nassau County government with the mismanagement, the dysfunction, and the corruption that costs all of us way too much money. So I put out a 4-point plan for our county's finances to set our priorities, and here's what it is. Number 1, we've got to have an honest conversation about the county finances. We have to put our finances right out there, nice and simple, look at the numbers. We can all look at our bank accounts, right, online and see very graphically how we're doing. So as your controller, that's exactly what I'm going to do. We're going to do scorecards that tell us, are we going in the right direction? Are we going in the wrong direction? How are we looking? And then, of course, we're going to talk about how we improve ourselves. Second, we need to do the kind of smart audits that need to be done to ask the questions of, are we getting the bang for our buck as taxpayers that we deserve? And third, we've got to look at our county contracting system and reform it and turn it around. That's what's making these headlines, right? The county contracting system is ripe for corruption. Our district attorney, Madeline Singas, put out a report in 2015 that talked about how we can turn around the county contracting system. Unfortunately, 7 out of 8 of those recommendations have fallen on deaf ears. When I'm controller, our district attorney will have a real partner in the controller's office to help turn these things around. In fact, the worst of these problems is that the contracting system moves both too slow and has too little oversight. So we need to modernize it, centralize it, so we can prevent the kinds of problems that we've seen in Nassau County before they happen. And finally, listening to the conversation tonight and looking around the room, I know there's going to be some great ideas in the room. If you report it, we'll reform it, right? Everyone in the room has ideas and frustrations that you see of things that are inefficient and that need to be looked at, audited, investigated, and reformed. So we're calling on everybody to give us your suggestions. Email me at jack@jackfornassau.com. We're making a list, and on January 1st, when I'm controller, we're going to get right to work on that. And then before I close, I want to mention, can I get a quick show of hands? Did anyone see the cover of Newsday last week that talked about the patronage and the nepotism? That's driving me crazy, and that's just too much for too long. And so as your controller, I'm going to do the first ever anti-nepotism audit in Nassau County. We're going to get to the bottom of exactly what's been going on, and we're going to figure out how we can prevent these things from happening and save money. So, in conclusion, I would ask for your support on November 7th. We've got a lot of work to do, but if you're ready to get going, I'd ask for your support. Let's get to work. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Everybody's been talking about the assessment, and the key is to push it down to the towns, the assessment role. What's your take on it?
Well, let's start from the perspective that the assessment system, I think we can all agree, is completely broken, right? We read those Newsday stories that talked about how if you and I lived next door to each other and had the exact same house, basically, we could be paying dramatically different levels of taxes. That's crazy, right? We shouldn't have to grieve our taxes in order to get a fair deal in Nassau County. That's just wrong. In fact, in Long Beach recently, we're seeing a situation where a homeowner who's been rebuilding their home, the city, we have our own assessor in the city, has the home valued at about $600,000, and the county's valuing that same home at $942,000. So that family is paying so much more money. That's just crazy, right? So we need to be reassessing on a regular basis. We need a qualified assessor who's going to do that work and do that work professionally. And you know what? In a lot of places it does go to the towns, but what we're finding is that the towns don't want it. So I think Nassau County has to get their house in order first, and then we can talk about how best, whether the system ought to stay with the county or go to the towns. Thank you.
One more.
Just out of curiosity, what would be your outlook in relation to the job of controller in relation to your Republican opponent's outlook?
Thank you for the question. So here's what I'd say. Regardless of who the next county executive is, we need an independent, reform-oriented county controller who's going to approach the job professionally. And that's the only way to do it. And I would argue that I am better positioned than my opponent to bring those kinds of reforms because he's on the inside now. He's been part of the county executive's office. He's been part of the controller's office. And we haven't seen the kind of changes and reforms that we need. So the only way we're going to make those kind of changes is if we bring new folks in.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. They don't have to.
Hi, as I mentioned before, we've made it a point of inviting most of the major candidates, and an extension was put out to their opponents. Also mentioned any other elected office seekers who are in the room that are on this election. And I want to know if there was any other candidates. We'd already given you, I'm sorry, your opponent wasn't notified. That's a problem. Oh, he is? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Rimmon.
It is the sexiest job on the ballot. That's why we say it.
All right. All right. Now, well, actually, can I ask you for your indulgence? We have three more. Wait, okay. All right. So, I tell you what. Can I ask for an indication of who got here first? Actually, I saw you were here first. All right. All right, Mr. Redmond, Welcome to the Wilson Park and Albertson Civic Association.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for waiting. I appreciate it a lot. I've just sat through it just like you did. Thanks for being here. So my name is Dave Redmond. I'm running to be your next town clerk this year. I was born and raised in Mineola. I've been a volunteer firefighter since December 2003 when I joined. I graduated Schnirman High School in 2004. I received my bachelor's of electrical engineering from the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. I have the tech background and the engineering mindset that will benefit the town clerk's office of North Hempstead. I've consulted various different industries and businesses throughout the last 10 years. You've heard tonight from other candidates speak about ethics, reform, things like that. We've had a lot of problems and issues here in North Hempstead. Supervisor Bosworth told you they've had very recent reforms of their ethics code. It's brand new. And she didn't tell you why. Their party boss for the last 18 years just pled guilty to federal tax evasion charges. That's a huge problem. Now, the person who committed the crime is solely responsible, but it's hard to believe he didn't negatively affect the rest of the town. In fact, he was paid by the town as a consultant to various different half a dozen jobs. That's why they have the new rules. So I commend them for implementing those rules. But it's time for new leadership. I walk around town, people see their neighbors with the Redmond sign supporting me. That endorsement goes very far. And on a normal year, they may not vote for a Republican candidate, but I'm not a normal Republican, and this is not a normal year. So I hope I have your consideration. I appreciate your consideration. And to give you a couple examples of my background in tech, I've had various engineering and technology roles. One of the most interesting ones was I worked for a private security firm back in 2008. Our clients were international airlines. We scanned passports and sent that data to the Homeland Security. The planes could not leave the tarmac until that data was sent 100% accurately. So I can take that same skill set and bring added value to the clerk's office. This is a big town. There's a lot of residents, a lot of voters. I hope you turn out. And I know how to handle that big data. I'll take some questions. I don't have anything else. They usually don't give me 6 minutes to speak. It's getting very late. Does anyone have any questions? Or you can ask Wayne some questions about who he's hired as former deputy town clerk, which happened to be Gerard Terry's wife.
Oh, I'm sorry, but we can't get into that.
We're not allowed to get into that, but look it up. It's on Newsday. The quotes are there. I'm sorry for bringing it up, because apparently it's against the rules to speak truth to power. As Wayne spoke about 4 years ago when he ran against Leslie Gross. I'm sorry about that, but they deserve to know.
I believe the last person on the bill would be Wayne Wink. Is there?
He's right here.
Yeah, and I'm trying to see. We had actually invited the county clerk candidates, and we don't seem to have them. All right, so Mr. Wink.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Wade, and thank all of you for being here. I was only half kidding when I said that they saved the sexiest job of all on the ballot for last, and that is the town clerk in the town of North Hempstead. Well, good evening. I've had the good fortune of representing all of you at one point or another over my career, and for the last 4 years, I've been able to represent you as town clerk. Prior to that, for many of you, I was your Nassau County legislator, and before that, I was a member of the town board. So I've, as I said, been able to represent all of you at one point or another. So I thank you all very much for being here, for staying late on a Friday night, 9:15. I promise we'll get out soon. For those of you who don't know me well, though, I am Wade Wink. I live right up Willis Avenue in Roslyn with my wife, who next month, her and I will be married 15 years. It's still a miracle to me why she's put up with me that long. But, and with my 12-year-old daughter, and it's a miracle that she's made it to 12 after some of her shenanigans. But it is so nice to be here this evening. As your town clerk for the last 4 years, it's been my privilege to represent all of you. And to sum up what my experience in the town clerk's office has been, is that we're doing more, we're doing it better, we're doing it for less money, and we're doing it with greater transparency than ever. Now, I know of those 4 things, the one you probably want to key on is that we're doing it for less money. Okay? From the day I took office, my predecessor's budget in 2014 until the budget we're about to vote on in the town board, my budget has been reduced by 10.35% in the general fund. 10.35%, and yet we are providing more services than ever. We are doing new services. We are doing the existing services better. Some of the new services we're providing. We are now a passport acceptance facility. Okay? The town clerk's office has never been a passport acceptance facility. We are now a passport acceptance facility. What does that mean? That means that when you come into my office looking for your child's birth certificate so that you can help them get a passport, you don't have to then walk out, go down to the CVS or the Rite Aid to get passport photos, and then go over to the post office to apply for a passport. You can do it all under one roof in my office. Okay? One-stop shopping. It's efficient, and it provides new revenues to the town, non-tax revenues, to help us make ends meet in the town of North Hempstead. That's one of the great things we've done. Another one of the great things we've done is we've implemented a new program called Novus Agenda. Novus Agenda helps us to run the town board meetings more efficiently, more effectively. Up until Novus Agenda, when a town board member went to a town board meeting, they'd walk in with a stack of papers, sometimes this thick, sometimes this thick, sometimes this thick. Okay? That stack of papers was the night's calendar and all the backup. And that packet of information was made by the town clerk's office. We were more of a copying company half the time than we were a town clerk's office. Okay? Novus Agenda took everything and made it digital. Novus Agenda now allows my office to no longer be in the copier business, and it allows every town board member to walk in with a laptop, open it up, and have all the same information available. That is more efficient, it's more effective, and that's how we're doing more. And we're doing it better because when I came into the office, each person in the office, and I have a great staff, let me be clear about that from the beginning, but I have a great staff, but each person in the office was responsible for a different thing. Okay? And no one person seemed to have somebody else who could help them do that job. I cross-trained every major responsibility, and there are many major responsibilities in my office. We cross-trained everybody so that when somebody was out for a week or somebody was out sick for a couple of days, you didn't have just a pile of papers waiting for them when they get back. Somebody could pick it up and run with it and make sure that we got it done faster. That kind of cross-training made us more efficient. Technology has also made us much more efficient. Each year we are digitizing and archiving thousands of documents, not only the ones that just were issued, but going back to old town board minutes and to old town records to ensure that they were digitized as well, so they will be permanently saved. Because one of my many responsibilities as town clerk is being the records management officer. And in that capacity, we're responsible for the parade permit that was issued yesterday, all the way back to the Dongan patent, which created the town of North Hempstead in the 1600s. Every document that needs to be saved by this town is my responsibility to make it accessible for all of you. Okay, that's a great responsibility. In addition to that, I'm also the Registrar of Vital Statistics, which means birth records, marriage records, and unfortunately death records are my responsibility. And that also makes me the marriage officer. In almost 4 years, I performed about 500 weddings, and it's really been not a single divorce, by the way, so just so you know. At least if there is, they don't come to me for that. So those are just some of the things I've gotten to do. I've enjoyed this job tremendously. I enjoy the opportunity to work for and with all of you, and I look forward to the opportunity to continue doing that. Thank you so much.
All right, anybody have any questions for Wayne? Wayne, right? Wayne. Tess, you want to say something, Tess?
I want to ask you, Wayne, my husband passed away in St. Francis Hospital, so if I needed that certificate, I would have to go to wherever. Can I come now to the...
In St. Francis Hospital, one of the few villages, you know, in addition to being the registrar for the town of North Hempstead, I'm also the registrar for about 20 villages in the town. One of them, however, is not Flower Hill. So the Village of Flower Hill, where St. Francis Hospital resides, they actually maintain their own birth and death records. There aren't a lot of births in St. Francis. Unfortunately, because it's a heart hospital, there are a number of deaths that occur every year. But the Village of Flower Hill would have his record.
And anything in reference to Mineola Village, do you represent them, or they have to go to the
They also have their own registrar function because they have Winthrop Hospital. Yes. So, but for most villages within the town, I would be their registrar.
Anybody else? Going once? All right.
You know, with the last name of Wink, I'm used to being at the end, so this is perfectly fine. No, W is always at the end. Come on. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of the week.
All right, the last two door prizes, and then I guess we can eat a little more. All right, let's just... Oh, I'd like to acknowledge the Albertson Fire Department. They have always let us use it. So thank you very much.